Let's see.
Goodness, you're making me nervous.
I think we are live now. So, for those who are tuning in.
So good evening, everyone.
Yeah, this is being recorded as well, so anyone who's not on the live chat will be able to catch up as well. Anyone who is on Zoom, if I can ask you to mute until you have time to ask questions as we continue on. So many of you are probably familiar with my face, but less familiar with Anna. So this is Dr. Anna Abramowski, and that's your name which you use professionally.
Yes.
And you have a background and a career in psychology, and specifically looking at anxiety. Now, we're living in a time probably which is more prone to anxiety from so many different angles than before, and that was the reason why we thought it would be so important for you to share your expertise. And I'm going to be in as well, just if there's any specific things that we want to bounce off each other while we're going at it, and of course giving time for the community as well. So a massive thank you to you for taking the time this evening, and really appreciate not just your time, but also your expertise in the area which relates to so many people. So over to you.
Yeah, thank you. Pleasure. So thank you very much for having me, both of you and everybody who's on the live stream and on Zoom. So I'll be speaking this evening about how to manage your emotional well-being during the global COVID-19 pandemic. So as Rabbi Feldman said, I'm a chartered counseling psychologist. I'm the founder of the North London Psychologist Clinic, which is an independent private practice in Stanmore and Bushy Heath. And I also work at the Royal National Orthopaedic Hospital in Stanmore in pain management. So as you all know, 3 weeks ago, the World Health Organization has assessed COVID-19, has decided that it's now pandemic state because of the rate of infection that is spreading globally, the associated mortality, and of course have asked all countries all over the world to take aggressive and urgent actions. This naturally is only going to inflict stress, anxiety, and uncertainty in many of us. Okay, so I'm going to be speaking to you about how to cope with anxiety and uncertainty. What's really important to remember is that all of us respond very differently to stress, to anxiety, and to adversity. Okay, so some of us might be high risk due to our underlying health condition, or perhaps because you're classified as a vulnerable person due to your age, perhaps, or because maybe you're pregnant, or you might have underlying mental health conditions. What's really important also to know is that people who are right now working frontline, so healthcare professionals, responders, or providers, might also be in a state of developing heightened symptoms of anxiety or burnout. So that's very important to know. So what happens in our body? What happens when we develop heightened symptoms of anxiety? Okay, this is when our sense of threat is really heightened. So what does this mean? Our sympathetic nervous system is activated, and it leads our bodies to go into the 3F mode. So this is the fight, flight, or freeze mode. Responses. Our primitive brain, so this is our limbic brain, or amygdala, so this is responsible for fear, is completely hijacked, and we might see threats everywhere around us. What happens physiologically? We might have an increased heart rate, tightness in our chest. We might have widening of our pupils, a lot of irregularities in our breathing, and we might be increasing our perspiration, muscle tension. What happens behaviorally? So the natural default mode when we feel anxious is to avoid. We see and we perceive threats, we just avoid, we retract. So that's when we try to flight. If we fight, this might manifest in perhaps more irritable or snappy, or we might have much more of an aggressive comportment. Okay. So how to manage anxiety? So cognitively, so our thought processes, we might have a propensity to catastrophize. So I'm sure you've all heard about this term, catastrophic thinking. This might lead, so what if this happens or that happens? You kind of have a bombardment of all the what ifs. And if we start ruminating, this is only going to lead us to feel mentally and physically exhausted and drained. Okay? So what's important is to try to move away from catastrophic thinking and instead try to bring focus and attention to what you can do and accept the things that you can't. Okay? So it's important to acknowledge and to sit with any of these painful feelings. So to notice and to acknowledge if you're feeling the anxiety surfacing, or even if it really turns up the volume and it just manifests into more feelings of panic, but to not feed into these thoughts. So this is where it's important to kind of reframe and appraise the situation or see it from a different perspective. And you can do this by practicing excellent self-care. Okay, and I'll be looking at it a bit more through this presentation. So some of the strategies that I want to speak to you tonight about how to manage your anxiety are the following. So the first one would be to try to keep a cognitive behavior therapy journal. So what does this mean? So this is basically looking at anxiety from a biopsychosocial approach. So a journal can be, you can use whatever medium that you want if you're going to keep a journal. So if those of you who like to go use a very traditional pen and paper, that would be excellent. Whether it's on a piece of paper, a traditional journal, whether you want to type it and that's more conducive to you and easier, that's great. Maybe you want to use like what I'm doing now, these voice applications, that's also fine. And you're going to be writing down the interplay of your thoughts. So the what if, everything that's streaming through your mind. Or if you're more of a visual thinker, images. So it might be my anxiety right now is manifesting and it looks like a gremlin or whatever image comes to mind. How do you feel emotionally? So recording those emotions. How do you feel within your body? So physiologically. And then what's your behavior? So what do you do? I'm going to show you later in the presentation an example of an entry of a cognitive behavior therapy journal. So you'll have more of a sense. And then the idea is to kind of gently challenge any of your negative thoughts. So again, we can't challenge how we feel emotionally. We can't really challenge anything that we feel within our body. It's important to sit with that. But we can always look at things from a different perspective. So the lens that we see our reality, that's very important. That's kind of through the lens of our mind. So that's going to be an important part of the work that we can do. Then a second strategy that's quite helpful is trying to keep a daily gratitude journal. So I'll show you examples of prompts that you can use, but that's basically recording every single daily triumphs that you have or successes that you think you have. And this is no matter how small or insignificant you think it is. Okay? It's really important because evolutionary, we're always much more salient to negative cues, but we always disregard the positives. You know, if I give you a long list of compliments, but then I just tell you that your handwriting needs a lot of work, that's the only thing that your brain is going to retain. So this is quite an important strategy. Then the last one that I would invite you to consider is to try to practice some mindful meditation. And I'll be speaking about that more in this presentation. And as we conclude this presentation this evening, I'd like to also do a short mindful meditation with you all. So this is basically, it comes from Eastern philosophy, from Buddhism, but it's not a spiritual practice. And we know now from all the evidence base that it really helps us. So meditation means allowing us to stay focused in the present moment in a non-judgmental and alert way, and paying attention to both your physical and your emotional sensation. And this is with openness and acceptance. So I'll be speaking about it later, but whatever thoughts we might have is just staying grounded in that present moment. So whatever we feel, physically, if you're feeling again that tightness in the chest, perspiration, or you're feeling like thoughts bringing you back to what if this happens, the future thoughts or past, again, bringing you back into the present. And that's going to be very important for grounding and for anchoring and for subsiding with anxious thoughts. And we'll be looking at that later. Okay? So this is an example here of a cognitive behavior therapy journal. So in this example that I'm showing you on the slide, I'm taking a situation of someone who I imagine is working right now frontline. So let's imagine someone frontline, and this is a situation running through their mind. So they're caring for a patient who has contracted COVID-19. Some of the thoughts or images might be, what if I get infected by the patient? What if I transmit this to my loved ones, to my family? Emotions, they might feel anxious and worried and fearful. Physiologically in their body, they might have excessive sweating, increased heart rate, and restlessness. And their behavior might be that they're pacing up and down the corridor or excessively checking in and reading the breaking news. Okay, this is possibly a situation that many of you might be echoing, even though you might not be frontline. You might be working even from home and might experiencing similar thoughts. But I just wanted to show you a snippet of what it would look like in terms of the breakdown. Okay, so these are some examples in terms of keeping a gratitude journal. So these are just some examples of prompt that you can use. Okay, you can use whatever prompt you want, whatever speaks to you, but I just like these, so I just want to share them with you. So the first one is, what made you smile today? Okay, who are you grateful for and why? What is something beautiful that you saw today? What freedoms are you grateful for? What is one thing that you love about yourself? What accomplishment in your life have brought you the most happiness? Okay? Just think about these. Now, these are some examples of mindful meditations that I would recommend. Again, if you look at Google and you look at you just type in the word mindfulness, you're going to see there's a plethora of so many resources around mindful meditation. I'm just recommending these because, first of all, it's highly accessible. So I'm recommending the Calm app, which won App of the Year. So, it has a lot of great resources. And then the Headspace app, because they're very short, excellent resource, and they're very short mindful meditations of 10 minutes long. So we all have within our daily structure, we can all kind of make 10 minutes for ourselves to try to practice mindful meditation. The other source that I highly recommend, because he's my favorite person, and this is completely subjective, is to listen to Mark William. So he was the founder of mindfulness-based cognitive therapy in Oxford. Now he's a retired professor, and all of his mindfulness meditation from this book, which is called Mindfulness: Finding Peace in a Frantic World, are completely freely available on YouTube. He has a beautiful, soothing English accent, so that's the only reason I recommend him. But you can find any accent and any script that you want, whether you want to go for a Scottish accent, American, whatever you want. There are resources out there. What's important to know is that practicing meditation takes a lot of time. There's no perfect way of doing this. You don't need to be sitting on a pillow, cross-legged, and be a Buddhist monk in Nepal. You can be within the comforts of your own home, and just making time to just noticing and staying present. Okay, it can be you make it as part of your routine, you just brush your teeth, you do a few minutes of mindful meditation and just really putting the pause button. So it's really the act of switching from the doing mode to just the being mode. And I guess a lot of times I can think about when we're praying and when we're unsure, we might also be like really in that being mode, you know? So it's quite similar actually. So the next things are, this is where I can't see the top of my slides, so sorry. So in terms of what can we do, which I would recommend is, so tips to remain emotionally healthy during COVID-19 is to keep a structured timetable. So that's going to be very, very important and very paramount. And actually, a timetable makes us all feel quite contained. And this should be filled with daily activities that give you all, so you and your loved ones, a sense of meaning and purpose. Whether you play an instrument or you have creative pursuits, whether you enjoy, baking or cooking or, anything, or playing a game, a board game, anything that gives you a sense of purpose. And it might be like today was a beautiful day, if you like gardening or just whatever that activity is, that doesn't matter. But really being engaged in those activities, and you can do that in a very creative way now that we have access to physical activities through digital platforms. This is going to give you and your loved ones a sense of purpose, specifically if you're self-isolating or you're in quarantine, or yes, or you're social distancing, all of this. So an important element as well is to stay physically active, so maintain a healthy lifestyle. And this includes not just eating, but also sleeping. So, of course, as a mother of very young children, I'm telling you this, but it's very hard for me to practice. And I'm sure it's very hard for all of you who have very young children at home. But sleeping is really paramount. And advice is given by Professor Matt Walker, who's a neuroscientist and a psychologist at the University of Berkeley, said that actually there's a lot of research between sleep health and immune health. So actually, if you can try as much as you can to have a good sleep health, this is only going to help you not only emotionally, but also in terms of your mood states. And it can, of course, inspire creative output as well, insight. So staying physically active, maintaining this healthy lifestyle, and connecting as well the social element with your loved ones through these digital platforms, like what we're doing right now, is going to only keep us more socially connected. And this is going to be a source of protective factor in times when you might feel much more isolated and alienated. Okay? So this is really important. The other thing is that psychological implications of COVID-19. So, in my opinion, practicing social distancing, being in quarantine, or self-isolating, all of these things are, of course, only naturally going to impact on our emotional well-being. Okay? In my opinion, this can be conceptualized very similar to when we go through a grief cycle, when we think about the losses. So thinking about the losses in terms of our professional identity, so we're all moving now remote, in terms of our caring responsibilities or changes in terms of the family structure, or losses in terms of, I'm sure, grandparents not being able to see their grandchildren, or in terms of changes in caring responsibilities. We can go through all of these feelings. So feelings of fear and anxiety, feelings of hopelessness and helplessness, feelings of frustration, irritability, detachment, bargaining, before we move towards a state of acceptance and returning to normality, so returning to a meaningful life. Of course, we're also grieving for people who we have lost, and I know that we have lost people, and Rabbi Philman did say that there were losses since the pandemic. So this is going to be something even harder in this time, specifically as we're grieving in a very different way, and we can't even be there for our loved ones in terms of Shiva or any practicality. So it's very important that we're all going to go through these feelings, and there's going to be tremendous sensations of loss. Okay. Furthermore, other psychological implications tied in with this feeling of fear and anxiety is associated stigma and prejudice that people might feel if they've contracted COVID-19, have been exposed to someone who has COVID-19, or perhaps they come from a country where there was a high reported cases of COVID-19. Okay, this only leads to fear and mistrust in the other, and this safety-seeking response along the lines, "Every man is for himself." This is actually the words of Dr. Giovanni Pace, a psychologist who wrote a very interesting article on "It's okay not to be okay" as a response to COVID-19. So this is in the British Psychological Society. So in summary, our responsibility is that in reality, we're all in this together. Okay, so it's really important to take a collective and shared responsibility to care and to look for one another. For example, engaging in small acts of kindness can only make us feel more socially connected. And I know I've seen on the Facebook group the wonderful things. So this might be bringing food to people who are classified as vulnerable, who can't leave the house. I saw this wonderful initiative the other day that was posted on Facebook with Cecil Rosen or Anita Bonfman. So to write cards or letters to people who are in care homes and who are feeling much more alienated. These are beautiful small acts of kindness. Okay, so the good news is that the secondary gifts that I've seen in this pandemic state is that communities have come together. Communities have merged, supporting each other through these very testing times, and have brought people together. So even though we're alone, on some respect, we're even more socially connected. Okay. This is a diagram that I wanted to show you all because I thought it was really, really beautiful. Unfortunately, there's no source or no credit. This was on LinkedIn. And for those of you who don't know what LinkedIn is, it's a professional social media platform. And it asks the question of who do I want to be during COVID-19? Okay, and I thought it was a beautiful diagram because it starts from this kind of fear zone. So in terms of our self-identity, and the fear zone might be all this panic buying that you've seen. So panic breeds panic. So, and then spreading these emotions onto our loved ones. Then there's the learning zone. So recognizing and being aware of our emotions, identifying and naming them, evaluating the information that we have and that we're reading and looking. Is this a credible source of information? Is this reputable? So it's really important to just look at information from credible sources. For example, the World Health Organization, the NHS website. It's really important to really consider where you're looking at your information. And then moving towards this wonderful growth zone. So this is, I really like this one. So practicing quietude, patience, relationships, and maybe forging greater senses of creativity. So deepening our relationships and showing thankfulness, gratitude, appreciation. Okay, this was really a great visualization, I thought. Then I wanted to show you this. Well, this was just really moved me tremendously. So I saw this picture. This was through Facebook this week, and it was a picture taken um, from Oregon in the US. And you can see, for those of you who can't see on this image, I just want to reassure you that there's a window and it's in a car. It's a vehicle. So a granddaughter kissing and waving to her grandmother. And this is quite moving and quite touching because we know that grandparents are really suffering right now. And so are grandchildren who are separated, who are used to seeing each other all the time. It was their tapestry of their daily life. So I wanted to share this with you because the impact is multi-generational. And then finally, just before we end, I'd like to now invite you all. I'd like to do a very short mindful meditation. This is called Leaves on a Stream. And just to give you kind of a taster for those of you who've never done any form of meditation, so all you have to do right now is gently close your eyes and be as comfortable as you can, whether you're standing or sitting or lying on your bed, wherever you are right now, or maybe you're busy running around the house. And this meditation is called Leaves on a Stream. Okay? So I want you to visualize yourself sitting beside a gently flowing stream, and leaves are floating along the surface of the water. For the next few minutes, I want you to take each thought that enters your mind and place them on a leaf and let it float by. Do this with each thought, pleasurable, painful, or neutral. Even if you have a joyous or enthusiastic thought, just place them on the leaf and let them float by. If your thoughts momentarily stop, just continue to watch the stream. Sooner or later, your thoughts will start up again. Allow that stream to flow at its own pace. Don't speed it up or rush any of your thoughts along. You're not trying to rush the leaves along or get rid of your thoughts. You are allowing them to come and to go at their own pace. If your mind says, "This is dumb, I'm bored, I'm not doing this right," just place those thoughts on the leaves too and let them pass. If a leaf gets stuck, allow it to hang around until it's ready to float by. If the thought comes up again, watch it float for another time. If a difficult or painful feeling arises, just simply acknowledge it. Say to yourself, "I notice myself having a feeling of frustration, of irritation, of boredom." Place those thoughts on the leaf and let it float by. From time to time, your thoughts may hook you or distract you from being fully present in this visualization. This is completely normal. As soon as you realize that you've become sidetracked, gently bring your attention back to this visualization. When you're all ready, I'd like to invite you to open your eyes again, and you can bring your attention back to the room. I hope that this was a new sensation, a pleasurable sensation. Some of you might have completely been sidetracked. Some of you might have had difficult emotions. Some of you might have found this more soothing. Or I love to hear your reflections afterwards. So as we conclude, I just wanted to share this really beautiful quote with you. Sorry, Rabbi Feldman, that you can't see this slide. This is the only one that I added. It's basically a quote from actually a Zen monk, Hamen Sunin, and the book is from The Things That You Can Only See When You Slow Down. It says, "We know the world only through the window of our minds. When our mind is noisy, the world is as well. And when our mind is peaceful, the world is too." Okay? Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you.
Well, Anna, thank you very much for
Pleasure.
the presentation and the meditation. There might be some questions that some people have that they want to ask you about your presentation, or just generally about the experience of anxiety in this time. But I want to just start with my own question. As
Yes.
as someone who needs to not only balance, as you said, your own life with your children and everything that's going on at the moment, but you're also having to be there for other people as well. How do you deal with your own anxieties that may come up? Are you just a superwoman and immune from the things?
No, that's an excellent question. With great difficulty. No, with great difficulty. We have.
Repeat the question because
Yes.
we couldn't hear.
Oh, sorry. He just asked, how do you manage your own anxiety with everything you have to juggle, or your own emotions. I think it's the same as what we would generally professionally. So we have peer supervision groups. We obviously have our own supervision. More than ever, our staff and our colleagues specifically working frontline are really supportive. So we do have support for ourselves, but it is very difficult to juggle specifically the demands of home life with professional life. And there's no easy dance with this. This is very difficult. If my husband was sitting right here, he would tell you this is a source of, being able to run your business, being able to work, and also having your family responsibility. There's no easy solution to this. This is hard. Yeah, so I don't have a perfect answer to you. Yeah. Any questions? So I heard someone earlier just speak. Was it Orly? No. Is there any questions? Now I can't hear anyone. Any questions? You can type them. You can ask me. How did you find the meditation?
I love the meditation, and I try and do meditation. I've been trying to do it daily for the past 3 weeks. I've been doing a 3-week meditation program.
Terrific.
And I think really, really helps. And it's something I'm going to continue with. I wanted to ask you, Anna, would you be able to share? I loved the diagram with the circles.
Oh yes, of course.
Really
I can share everything. Yes, of course.
Thank you.
So yes, the diagram is lovely. Unfortunately, there's no source, so I'd love to know who designed it. Yeah, but it's a beautiful diagram. So this was on LinkedIn. Yeah.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Any other questions? So there's only 4 people right now.
You can only see 4. There's more people.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Unless just your family members, of course.
Yes, I can see. No, I can see actually Max Curtis right now.
Yeah, hi.
Hi, Max.
Hi there.
Hi.
How are you doing? Really,
Good.
really fascinating. And thank you so much for such a concise and helpful presentation.
Pleasure.
I had a question.
Yes.
Which is, you mentioned before, like you were talking about, you might be experiencing frustration or irritation, and I think you sort of almost off the tongue talked about a number of kind of emotions people are experiencing. I suppose one of the 2 questions is, one is, what are you finding are the most are the emotions that are unsettling people the most at the moment? But also, another thing that I wanted to share is, I think it can be hard sometimes to almost think what emotion you're feeling and to almost grasp it and articulate it. And I wonder if that is something that is a personal experience or is a common thing at this time. So you can't even get your head around the actual emotion.
Yeah, I think this is completely natural. So I can't speak that everyone is feeling an array of emotions. So I pointed out to all of the above, because we're all going to be experiencing, whether it's frustration, feelings of helplessness, hopelessness, any of these very painful emotions. But the most important thing I would say, even if you're feeling completely overwhelmed or unable to even name it or recognize it or sit with them, is to be able in time to communicate and to just voice them out. So I'm experiencing this. So a lot of us, for example, right now, it might be they were still in a stage of denial. Like, you know, people say, oh, I feel like I'm right now in a horror movie, or this is like a bad show. It's almost, it hasn't hit our sense of reality. But we're going to move through these changes because right now it's becoming part of our daily fabric. I mean, for other people, they might have more sense of normalcy because they go back, you know, the maybe frontline or first responder, or they go back and forth to work. For other of us who might be working, so for example, my private practice is all digital right now, remote. It's quite a different sensation and a different relational dynamic. I think that the most important is to be able to communicate exactly the feeling that you have. There's no one person feels more than that. Everyone will feel an array of different difficult emotions. Remember that some people might have been maybe generally, maybe they might have been worriers, or maybe they had health anxiety. I mean, my biggest concern was, you know, with people living or having lived experience of OCD, for example, this is only going to exacerbate, or it might, you know, it's going to be a very difficult time. Or people who live with social anxiety, for example. I mean, I think my message in short would be to be able to recognize how you feel, and then to be able to communicate it with your loved ones, whatever you feel. The most important is going to be around communication, okay? And then applying like a strategy that's going to help you to self-soothe and calm down. Yeah. I hope that's that's a good answer for you.
It's very helpful. Thank you, Dr. Anna. Thank you.
Any other question? I think there's only the three of us. I mean, if there's any,
I just wanted to say, I think that I know this is a really awful and terrible time, but to try and focus on some of the positives that we might be getting out of it. And I think like things like family time and time to do things that we wouldn't otherwise have.
That's right.
Now I'm trying to focus on the positives, and
That's right.
It's hard because of ever people seriously ill and people dying. So I'm trying just not to focus on that side of it, but just the positives.
Yeah.
And it's quite a special time we've got now with the family. We'll probably, please God, this will never happen again in our lifetimes, and we wouldn't have to experience it again. But for a while we've got it. I think for these next few months, I think to try and appreciate that it's a very special time.
It is. I mean, that's a beautiful way to see it. And there's wonderful resources available to also explain what's going on to children, who might, it is. We have to think about really practicing our daily gratitudes, strengthening the relationships that we have, and you're absolutely right. There are a lot of positives. So even communities. I mean, it was really moving, the clap for the NHS this week and last week. So no, you're right. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure. Pleasure.
I asked you to do this for the community, and normally when I do this type of questions, it's because I think there's a need for others. But this was very much a need for myself as well. And I can see the amount of time and effort that you put into the presentation, and we look forward to sharing the link of the recording for other people to benefit from it as well. Please look after yourself.
Yes, you too.
Well, and looking forward to sharing further amazing content. And if you were to want to post or allow us to post your clinic that you've created, so people are able to benefit from it as well, that'd be really great also.
Yes, definitely. Thank you very much, Rabbi Philman, for having me, and thank you, Rabbi Ketz. Thank you both, and keep well.
Thank you very much, Anna.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.